In this podcast, I'm going to be talking about one of the coolest national parks I probably have ever been to. Does not have a single plant inside of it, does not have a single, there might be some little parasite worms inside of it, but has almost no animals. No, there's some crickets. I lied. But no serious wildlife. There's no lions running around. I'm going to be talking about a national park that is like that. And this national park, if you've never heard of it, never seen it, is called Carlsbad National Park, Carlsbad Caverns. And the entire national park is within a cave. It's incredible. So the way it works is this cave setup. Let me just go through a little bit of history, the way the tour said it for me. Late 1800s, early 1900s, guy by the name of John decided to explore this cave. And as a teenager, he found this thing. And he just kept exploring it. And to this day, there are still miles of caverns in that park that have not been explored yet. So we're looking at about 34 miles of explored territory now. Add a little bit extra for fluff. Around 50 miles of caverns. To access for the public, not access to the public. So, now let's go back to the traveling. How the hell do you get to Carlsbad Caverns? You do a few different things. One, you can fly into El Paso, like I said before in a previous podcast. You could fly into El Paso and drive about 2 hours each way. But the best way of doing it is if you can stay either in Carlsbad, the town, or if you could stay in a place called White City. White City is like alien stuff, New Mexico touristy shtick mixed with like a little Western style town, population like 8, like that kind of thing. Couple little shops here, and that's it. And there's a couple inns, so if you want to just stay there, that's the best way of doing it because you're literally 5 to 10 minutes away from the actual park. The reason for that is something that we could not do because we were doing it from El Paso. Being able to see the bats come out in the cyclone is what everyone knows the park for. Because the problem is if you drive 2 hours back, you can't safely go through all those trails. There's a little bit of winds here and there to get to the park. So to do it at night doesn't really make sense, especially on the roads you don't really know. But yeah, so if you can stay as close as you can to the area, White City is the closest. Carlsbad is about 20 minutes away, so it's close second. I've never actually been to Carlsbad, the town, so I can't vouch for anything. And yeah, so basically stay in White City if you can, and then go from White City, 10-minute drive to Carlsbad Caverns. So the way it works, you go to the very top of this hill. There's a parking lot. There's like a little service center for the national park. And instead of going into the park, you're going in. That makes any sense. You're going under. So you can either do a couple different ways. You can go on the 60-second long elevator ride. It's like a 60, 70-second long, somewhere in there. 60 to 70-second long elevator ride from where the gift shop and the cafeterias are and the service center, all the way down to the bottom of the caves, where there is a full-on. If you want to know how massive this place is, in one room of the cave, there is a small food court, a whole sweater bit like gift shop for t-shirts and that kind of stuff, all within one room, and plenty of tables. That's your general meeting area. Like if you want to meet a tour, that's where they are. So by the way, tours linked below. There are tours for not very expensive, serviced by the national park themselves. The rangers give out these tours. It's like $8 to $10 a head. You're not paying more than like say $10 a head, maybe $12 a head. So you're not very expensive, and it lets you see other parts of the cave that you would never see on your own. So I'm gonna go back into that. There is about 3.5 miles of caverns that you can see on your own. Like if you were to just do a hike, this is the 3.5 miles you could see on your own. There is a mile of zigzag pave going from the top, from like the mouth of the caverns. Instead of doing the elevators, the other option. So you go zigzag hike a mile down, you get to the bottom, and there's about 2.5 mile loop inside the cave that's access to the public. So there's a full on 2.5 mile hike within one large room of the caverns. Great. And for those of you who are wondering, is this cave lit? Here's the thing: the cave is lit. Like they're set up almost like spotlights, kind of like you have like an exit, like those like relatively large LED, not LED, like just a relatively large fluorescent setups. There's spotlights set up throughout the cave, but I would still recommend buying like a cheap headlamp for like $1 at Walmart, just because if you have it for there's a few times where there's relatively low hangings where it's like 5 foot hanging or it's like a 6 foot area. So have it just so you can go see stuff like that, because there is some splotches of semi pure darkness, meaning like it's not like pitch black. You put your hand in front of it, you can't see it, but it's still like never hurts to have it so you have proper lighting. And also, there's all kinds of cool like crystal stuff you would never actually notice if you don't have a headlamp, just on the sides of the rock as you're hiking down. So cheap headlamp, cheap flashlight is all you really need. You can buy one for like $1. It'll work just fine. Um, Definitely plenty of water, although they'll sell you waters as well at the very bottom of the cave, so you can. And that's also where this thumbnail takes place. There's a full-on restroom, like a properly done restroom, 750 feet underground, just cause they have that. They have the cafeteria there. So yeah, full-on restroom, 750 feet underground, and so that is the explore. So that is the parts that the public can access. Then there are other paved areas that you can access with a tour. So those are the two main ways of exploring the cave. The other is you meet up with a tour for a certain time. Um, Reserve it relatively in advance, just because tours sometimes will actually sell out. So if you can call them up in advance, if you know you're going, you want to go a certain time, give it a shot. Like I said, link below if you want to find that stuff. And basically, if you do that, so yeah, take the tour. There's various ones that will take you to various areas. There's like a full on like candle based lantern tour. Excuse me. But that's not the one we took. We took more of the classic four. There's a one you explore 4 large rooms, and that was also a cool tour. So yeah, do the tour just because you can explore different parts of the cave. If you're taking a day or day and a half to go somewhere, take the time to go do it. That being said, how much time is the right amount of time to do Carlsbad? I would probably recommend you take about one full day or about a day and a half. So, what I'd recommend if you want to just do all in one day is you get to White City, you crash, you wake up in White City, and you give yourself a full day of exploring the cave, doing all the tours, all the bat stuff. You could do a lot of it within a day, and then see your bat cyclone, crash back at that same lodge in White City, and then from White City, when you wake up the next day, you give yourself that full day to drive or to go wherever else you want to go. That to me makes the most sense. Maybe about a day and a half, if you at the longer end, but you can see most of it within a day. But it's just a cool national park. It is all these large stalagmites. You're hiking 2.5 miles. Excuse me. But yeah, give it a shot. If you end up in New Mexico, if you want a fun national park to go to, this is the national park I would recommend. And it is not a very touristy national park. I will go back to that. That's a very good point. It is not a very touristy national park, meaning like take the Grand Canyon or Yosemite or Yellowstone, for example. They're all the ones that everyone knows. they're known as the touristy parks. So those are the ones that everyone knows about, everyone travels to, and they have a feeling of like the tour buses pull up. It doesn't really feel right. But Carlsbad doesn't feel like it's a national park, like it's a touristy place. You look around and it's just abandoned desert 100 miles in every direction when you look at the view from the top of where the service center is. So it as far as national parks go, it is not a very touristy park. So yeah, if you end up in New Mexico, give it a try. If you like this kind of stuff, if you want more of the travel stuff, like, comment, subscribe. When you make your comment this time, uh, give me a feedback on this channel. Do you want more travel stuff like this, or just general touring stuff? Because I do a mix of both. Or do you want more fishing stuff, or vice versa? Give me some preferences, leave some comments, and see you guys around.